CCG Media presents High Tech Sunday. On today's episode of High Tech Sunday, our hosts, Rayondon Kennedy and Lango Deen, sit down with Prospective Executive Officer of USS BAINBRIDGE and 2022 BEYA STEM Conference Career Achievement in Government awardee, Commander Desmond Walker, for a conversation on the path of a Black Naval Officer. Up first is Career Communication Group's Managing Editor, Rayondon Kennedy. Next is Career Communication Group's Senior Technology Editor, Lango Deen. Finally, our esteemed guest, Commander Desmond Walker. Commander Walker has served on USS BATAAN, where he received the Humanitarian Service Medal after support of Hurricane Katrina humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Later, the commander served on USS CARL VINSON, where he excelled at anticipating problem areas and management of 26 assessable chemical and radiological programs. Ashore, Commander Walker served as a nuclear programs manager, section head for Amphibious Warfare In-Service Readiness, and most recently, the executive assistant to Commander 2nd Fleet / Commander Joint Forces Command Norfolk. Commander Walker has received numerous recognition awards, such as the NNOA Captain Sally Kafer Mentoring Award in 2017 and NNOA Doris Miller Award in 2018 for his efforts in improving the connection between accession, retention, and mentorship of naval officers. And, without further delay, High Tech Sunday, featuring Rayondon Kennedy and Lango Deen.
All right. Thank you, Brandon. And thank you all for joining us for another episode of High Tech Sunday. Today is episode 48. We've been knocking these episodes out. We've been having a lot of great people. And today we are joined by Commander Desmond Walker, who is no exception to our guests. And so we have a great conversation planned for you. We have Lango Deen joining us as a co-host. But let's welcome our guest, Desmond Walker. Desmond, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Ray. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So Brandon, in the intro, ran down a lot of awards and achievements. And I know that wasn't even half of the bio and resume that you have. So we're blessed to have you. We're excited for this conversation that we have coming up. And so to kick things off, I'm a superhero buff. And so I want to know about your origin story, because to our audience, you are our superhero. And so I want to know, a little bit about you, how you got to where you are. And let's start with talking about your professional background. Why did you choose to pursue the engineering path that you did?
Awesome. So yes, thanks again for having me here today. I do want to start off by saying first that, I'm an active duty naval officer. And so any of the comments that I share today are of my own opinion and in no way reflect the opinion or thoughts of the United States Navy or Department of Defense of any of its components. So I want to get that out there first.
Yes, sir.
And for my professional background and personal background, at my core, I'm just an old country boy from Mississippi. I enlisted in the Navy back in 1996, and it was really just to go see the world. My high school, the Mississippi School of Mathematics and Science, prepped me for college. And so academically, I knew college would not be an issue for me, but I wanted to have some life experiences. And so I enlisted as an electronics technician. During my time while serving on the Dwight D. Eisenhower nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, my mentors recommended that I try to become a naval officer. So I applied to the Seaman to Admiral 21 program. It's basically an enlisted to officer commissioning path where the Navy, if accepted, you are given 36 months to complete a bachelor's degree and complete all the commissioning requirements via the ROTC. So I was like a professional student while in the ROTC, just like any other ROTC student straight out of high school. And that's where I service selected for nuclear surface warfare officer. That set me on the path. And now as a nuclear trained surface warfare officer, I have a dual career path where I am on path to be the commanding officer of a ship one day, which is coming up here soon, and also on the nuclear path to be the reactor officer on the same kind of nuclear powered aircraft carriers that I started in my career. And so working both those paths gives me great opportunities to always expand my horizons, to learn different leadership styles, always kind of going back and forth between both areas. Because as a surface warfare officer, you know, it's all about tactical war fighting, you know, the launching missiles, anti-submarine warfare, and integrated air missile defense, things like that. Whereas the nuclear path is all about safe operation and maintenance of the nuclear reactors and the propulsion plant for the aircraft carriers. So both of those paths create different dynamics towards a very generalist leadership style, which I have found to be very helpful as I've matured in the Navy.
I think that's really awesome. So you have are you able to do both? Because you said you might be able to lead aircraft carrier or take the nuclear path. Are you able to do both?
Yes, and so the notional career path for a nuclear SWO, SWO is short for Surface Warfare Officer, a nuclear SWO, you serve on a conventional platform, then you'll switch to a conventional platform. And each iteration is anywhere from 24 to 30 months, depending on where you are in your career. And every time you go back to the next one, your responsibilities, level of accountability always increase. And so there's a natural maturation process as you move along in your career.
I want to dive into this in a little bit, but I want to stay with the intro a little bit because I really do want to learn more about the nuclear processes and kind of demystify some of the myths, if you will, about the nuclear. I don't want to say process reactors, but
I guess the better way to say it, we'll go Navy nuclear propulsion program. That's the best way to categorize it, because you throw nuclear out there, folks start thinking nuclear weapons and bombs and missiles, and that's not the level of nuclear power that we're dealing with. It's what you would consider clean energy, just like a nuclear reactor that you would have providing electrical power for your local community.
I'm not gonna lie, Commander Walker, that's exactly where my mind went.
It's that superhero you coming out.
Yeah, I was thinking zombies. I was thinking all kinds of things. Chernobyl. but before we dig in, before we get there and talk about those pathways, let's talk about your passion. What is your passion? What gets Commander Walker up and kind of gets him going, ready to start the day? What's your passion?
Knowing that I have a chance to affect the lives of others in a positive way. That's what gets me going. I grew up in a Navy where I didn't see naval officers that looked like me. They were enlisted if they did look like me. And so when I made the decision to apply to become an officer, one of the things that came to me was, hey, I get a chance to do something different because no one does this, right? And then after commissioning and then getting exposed to that new opportunity, realized that I wasn't the only one, but the numbers were still small enough to where it's impactful when you come across one. And so I've been dedicated to then helping others connect to that same opportunity in a way that hopefully increases those numbers. Because again, it's opportunities, if you don't know about the opportunity, you can't go after it. So there's a level of education from a community perspective that I've just embraced because I care about the end goal, which is to improve diversity in our military.
Thank you for that. One of the cool things about High Tech Sunday that we've talked about is that we get to talk about your spirituality a little bit and how that spirituality influences the passions. Because a lot of the times we speak to folks like yourself, we find that their spirituality plays a major role in them going in and executing their day-to-day and really influencing the passions. And so my question to you is, what's your spirituality background? How's your spirituality kind of fueled your mission, your passion?
That's a great question. I was raised Pentecostal, and I still believe that to this day, in those tenets. And I guess the foundation for me is you have to have a certain level of faith and belief in the higher power to help you achieve certain things, because you can only do so much. And that point when you think you can't go any further, then something good happens, or something positive happens in your life, and you're like, I don't know how that happened, but I'm grateful and I'm thankful. And so for me specifically, Psalm 37:4 is one of my foundational scriptures. Delight thyself in the Lord, and he will give thee desires of thine heart. And so going back to my passion for helping others, my passion is helping others, is like almost like ministry. And if my efforts are just to help other people, then I believe that God is going to then give me exactly what I deserve based on doing those things. So I delight myself in him. I live a life that I think follows him, and then good things will happen, basically.
Yes, sir. You do works for God. Everything else kind of works itself out, and it kind of.
And then too, it takes the focus off of anything material, and it keeps things kind of in the intangible area, and your goals shift from money and cars and homes and stuff like that, and it shifts more to happiness, peace, joy, those type of things. And I think if you can be joyful in whatever you're doing, then that's the ultimate win for me, because you're not stressing about stuff, things like that. So
absolutely, amen to that. So Commander Walker, I will be remiss if I don't bring up that you are a 2022 BEYA Career Achievement Award winner. Congratulations. I'm going to give you a round of applause for that.
I appreciate it. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you accept that award. And so my question to you as we start getting into the next phase of the show is tell us about the moment when you found out you was a winner, and tell us what that award means to you.
So it's so cool. I received a voicemail from our SWO nuclear flag advocate. So it's basically an admiral, the most senior admiral that's a nuke, SWO nuke. He left me a voicemail saying, congratulations, you basically won this award. And I was freaking out. I didn't know what to tell. I just ran to my wife. I said, hey, sweetie, I won this award. And I just stood there, and she was all cheering and stuff. The kids was cheering and everything. And I'm like, did I just win an award? So I was in it right after. I was in shock.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was a very good culminating event that was an opportunity to just appreciate the things I've accomplished so far in my life.
Yep. And so now we get into the conversation, the path of a Black Naval officer, and I know you touched on it a little bit, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper into the roles that you're doing, and really talk about this clean energy, this nuclear role that you have, and kind of knock down some of these myths. So what exactly are you doing, and how is this clean energy kind of the way to go, the way of the future?
Okay, so the Navy's nuclear program is all about, reducing the use of fossil fuels. And so Admiral Jaime G. Rickover, we call him the father of nuclear Navy, and he was the one that got this party started. And so with Navy nuclear power, it allows us to basically go technical real quick. It is High Tech Sunday. Instead of using a combustion engine to be your heat source, we use a nuclear reactor that is basically pre-made, and you use that to superheat the water that surrounds it, and then use a heat transfer process to make steam, and that superheated steam then powers all of our turbines that creates all the energy we need. And so one of the phrases that we used to say, or we probably still say it on the ship, on one of the ships: answer the bell, power the bus, and steam the roof. What that means is we have 2 reactors for 2 propulsion plants. An aircraft carrier has 4 shafts, 2 shafts per plant. And so one reactor is creating enough steam for 200,000 horsepower of propulsion for our high pressure turbine through a reduction process to turn the shaft. So that's answering the bell, the propulsion bell, then powering the electrical bus. So we have generators that are converting that steam into electrical power to power all the stuff on the ship. And then also for our primary mission, which is launching and recovering aircraft carriers, the launching and recovering aircraft, not aircraft carriers, because the aircraft are the ones that are dropping the bombs. When you think strike mission, when you hear on the news, USS whatever conducted, 45 strikes in Afghanistan. This is what they were doing. It's a nuclear officer is creating steam to launch that strike package, which is a group of tactical fighter aircraft to go basically drop bombs on who we have designated as an enemy to our national interests.
Let me know if I'm oversimplifying this. So basically, the nuclear energy has converted the carriers into a steam engine, whereas when they had the steam locomotives, they were using coal to kind of create that steam. And so the nuclear reactors are what's creating that heat and that steam that's powering these large vessels.
Exactly, and you only have to refuel it once. So an aircraft carrier is built to last 50 years, and at its halfway point, we go through what's called a refueling complex overhaul, where we take out the core of the spent fuel and put in a new core. We change oil. It takes about 4 years.
When you first said refuel once, I thought you meant like you refuel once on a trip. You mean refuel once in his lifetime, in 50 years, so 25 years.
Mm-hmm. Then
that's when you replace it.
Right.
What's the danger level? And again, I'm speaking from kind of the mystified audience. What's the danger level or of working with these vessels, or working, with these nuclear reactors?
Well, any ship, whether it's a conventionally powered or nuclear powered, there's always some degree of risk. They're all industrial environments. That's why we have to follow the same OSHA requirements as private industry does from a federal government regulation perspective. So that part is not an issue. Just we have to follow those guidelines, and then additionally, we actually have more conservative guidelines under our director of Navy nuclear propulsion, a 4-star admiral in DC, where we, through experience, and then I don't say experience, I guess I'll say through experimentation, the testing to prove certain factors are true about the way the materials that we use, how they break down when they're exposed to other isotopes. We know what those are, and then we put mitigations in place to protect everyone. So that's why no one on the ship has to worry about radiation poisoning or contamination, because we take all those precautions to operate the reactors safely. And then there's shielding and all of the kind of state that goes into building an aircraft carrier. It's one joke we have where, some people will talk about the aircraft carrier, is about launching all these aircrafts to go do this stuff. But the nuke would tell you that, no, we have all that aircraft because the most important asset is the 2 reactor cores on the carrier. So
So no zombie outbreaks while
No,
at sea.
no.
So, Commander Walker, when you joined, is this the path? Did you know that you wanted to work in the nuclear area, in the nuclear field when you joined?
I wanted no parts of it. They tried to recruit me to go enlisted nuclear, and I was like, no, I don't want any parts of that. And that was just due to I didn't know any better. But all I knew about nuclear power, other than just kind of what I learned in school, was The Simpsons. Simpsons was big back then, late 90s. You got Homer Simpson with that green glowing rod. Like, I don't want none of that stuff. But once I understood the Navy in a larger context, actually my student advisor at Norfolk State University, he was a SWO nuke as well. And he was the one that, like, he shared some things with me about Navy nuclear power that were like, hey, conventional is this, nuclear is this. If you're going to be doing these type of things, you might as well do nuclear, because nuclear actually offers you more bonus money to do the do similar things in some regards. And I said, I did my interview and got accepted, and the rest is history.
In our conversation, in our pre-briefing meeting, you mentioned a program called the Nuclear Propulsion Officer Candidate Program. Can you tell us about that and the role that you play with that program?
Absolutely. So when I was assigned to Navy Recruiting Command, this would have been 2010 to 2012, I was assigned as the support for 3 of the Navy's recruiting districts at the time. And my role was to be the subject matter expert to the local recruiters who were trying to find talent to join the Navy. So the local recruiter was all about the application process. I was the person that would come and explain the features and benefits of joining the Navy in this particular career field. And one of the great things about NUPOC is there's 4 different options. There is an operational level, which is broken up into 2 subsets. I'm operational, surface and submarines. And then another option is instructor. So you apply to the program and become one of the naval instructors in Charleston, South Carolina. And then the other tier is nuclear naval reactors engineer. And that you are housed in DC. And so in that area, that's more of the theory and design and development of new procedures, new processes as we learn new things from behavior perspective of Navy nuclear power. And that opportunity presents itself when you are in your second semester of your sophomore year. That's the earliest you can apply. And so we went hard at exposing incoming freshmen to the program so that they have time to think about that from a career perspective, because it is a highly sought after position. Because once you're selected for the program, we actually pay you as an E6 in the military, a first class petty officer, but you don't do any of the ROTC training. There's a couple of other like medical requirements you have to do, but you're a professional student earning active duty time, active duty leave, and active duty pay while being a full-time student. And that's why it's such a great program.
That's awesome. And I do want to talk a little bit more about the program and ROTC, but we're going to cover that a little bit later. But I want to switch gears a little bit, because I read the article that you wrote called The Burden of a Black Naval Officer. And I want to talk about that a little bit and start with, what called you, how about tell us a little bit about the article and what called you to write that article?
Okay, thank you. So there is an organization called United States Naval Institute. They put out a monthly publication called Proceedings magazine. And the editor, through a mutual associate, was looking for someone to write about the African-American experience post George Floyd's murder. And when the mutual friend reached out, I had already been writing some stuff anyway, kind of just tapping away at the keyboard because I was dealing with my own emotions about it, because the frustration of being an active duty member and wanting to protest and, be angry, be frustrated, to cry, to just to be in that moment and try to rationally understand what that moment meant, but still be a naval officer. And that was a huge challenge for me. So I used my words to do that initially. And then when my friend reached out, I was like, hey, I'm already working on something. I can try to put something together. And so I asked for a word count and a deadline. He provided that and went through about 10 iterations of it, because I really wanted to have an impact on anyone that reads it, whether you are a 4-star admiral or you're going to commission from the Naval Academy, next May. I wanted something in that article to resonate across generations, because that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a generational issue in the moment. And I just wanted to add a voice to all those stories that people had shared with me about their frustrations in military service, in the Navy, pre-George Floyd. And that's what I attempted to do with that article.
That's powerful. And a lot of people was kind of feeling the same way, no matter what the career that they were going through. What is the burden of a Black naval officer? If we want to, to dig in and go a step further, what has been kind of your experience as a Black? I mean, the topic is the path of a Black naval officer. So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the experiences of that you've had as a Black naval officer.
Yes. So I'll tie it back to the earlier conversation about kind of feeling like you're the only one. So the burden is understanding the environment you're in, the full context of what America means, and still, with all of those potential roadblocks, with all of those potential hazards or tripwires, you still try to move forward. You still try to have a positive impact. That is a heavy burden to carry when you have that type of awareness, because it's easy to just put your head down and work real hard and say that nothing's going to affect me because I'm going to work with my work ethic is going to get it done for me. But what do you do when your work ethic isn't enough? When someone puts a roadblock in front of you, whether emotionally or physically or mentally, there's a roadblock in front of you that you don't know is there until it's too late. And that burden, that's when in the article I referenced it as you're dealing with 400 years of post-traumatic stress disorder that has not been dealt with. Because I wake up in every morning, I'm a Black man before I put my uniform on. I'm a Black man when I take it off. And, when I drive on base, they see Commander Walker. But when I drive off base, they see a Black man. And when I wrote the article, I wanted to capture that sense in the framework of what it's meant to serve in the Navy in that way. Because I've shared this before, at the end of the day, you pick any sector, any industry, any corner of the workplace, and that's just a sample size of what America is. You can't get away from it. And I wanted to highlight in the article that 50-year space. What I was trying to say there was, you can't just say because I'm in the Navy, we don't have these problems. I have these problems, whether we have these problems as a community, as a culture, because we are in America and we have some unresolved issues. And that's a burden that we have to carry. And as a Black naval officer, when you are aware of what America means in its fuller context, sometimes you're in the position where you have to educate someone that doesn't know, or is not aware of their bias or discriminatory practices or, racism, whether overt or covertly. You have to be the example. If you're the one student If you're the one naval officer from an HBCU on your ship, then everyone looks to you for the answers about what it means to have an HBCU experience. And you have to field those questions because you don't want to put the HBCU experience in a bad light. You become the reference point for all things Black. Whether someone wants to be educated about it or doesn't want to be educated about it and needs to be because of their leadership position. And we take that burden with us, whether we accept it or not.
So one of my last questions before I throw it over to Lango is staying in that same vein of topic of discussion, but it's more so the message that you have to young people. People who are considering, enlisting or considering joining. One of my role models, public role models, is Muhammad Ali, right? And so, he refused, the draft and chose to not fight. And he has that famous line, I'm not going. Paraphrasing, I'm not gonna go over there and fight them when you guys won't fight for me here. And that's something, even when I thought about, joining the military, it's something that crossed my mind. I know it crosses a lot of minds of young Black people. So how do you balance that, the responsibility and the honor to serve? Because there's been a lot of amazing and special African Americans, Black people in the military. But how do you measure that responsibility and I'm trying to make sure I say this right. How do you fight and serve, a country and a military that has been traditionally reluctant to do the same for you? Yes.
At the end of the day, I'd rather be part of the solutions than part of the problem. We might not have asked to be here, but we're here now. And so the question is, what are you going to do with the opportunity? That's what Joe Madison, Black Eagle, I get that from him. What are you going to do about it? Right. I'm an action person anyway. And so it just comes natural for me to want to affect change in a positive way. And again, it is not even about, trying to take opportunities for someone else. It's about ensuring that folks that don't know about the opportunity but have the same capability, have the same capacity, have the same initiative, are aware of this opportunity and makes this something to consider, because that's what gets lost in a lot of this stuff. I could be upset about some of the things that's happening in America in the past that is happening now, but to me, that's looking backwards. I'd rather look forward and say, okay, is this how it works now? Okay, how do I help others understand this so that if this is what they want to do, then they can do it in a helpful, smart way that benefits them.
Thank you. Commander Walker, this has been a great conversation. I'm coming back to you, but I'm going to switch over so we can talk about a few more of those benefits of joining for young people. And so I'm going to toss it over to Lango Deen, who's going to talk about advice for young people.
Awesome.
Lango, how you doing?
Doing well, Ray.
You're listening to High Tech Sunday, featuring Rayondon Kennedy, Lango Deen, and our special guest, Prospective Executive Officer of USS BAINBRIDGE and 2022 BEYA STEM Conference Career Achievement in Government awardee, Commander Desmond Walker. Now, back to the show.
Welcome to the show, Commander Walker. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to say a little prayer for Joe Madison because he's 23 days into his hunger strike.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm just going to offer a little prayer for him there. You mentioned two things that really caught my attention and which lead directly into the question. A little while ago, you talked about being a subject matter expert to local recruiters. And just a few minutes ago, you said your focus is always, how do I help others understand this so that they can do better? And you have brought a whole village with you, some very smart sailors in your background. So what do you, as a recruiting specialist, what do you tell young people? How do you help them understand this? Like what the village in your background understood and what you understand about service, about nationhood, about careers. How do you help them understand?
Okay. So I'll answer in two parts. Specifically with the nuclear piece, I would always approach a potential naval officer who's usually a college student with this proposal. I would say this Navy commitment is about 5 years. Look at this as a 5-year investment into the next 50 years of your life. What you will get by joining the Navy is instant opportunities to lead and develop your own managerial and leadership style, which is two different things, leadership and management. You get to see the world. You get to, in a relatively safe environment financially, be in a position of relative comfort to try new things without, any real detriment to yourself because of the steady paycheck. Then with the earned benefits, it's a win-win from an investing in yourself perspective. And then for life in general, I try to find the need that they're looking for, like what drives them. And if whatever that thing is, I try to relate that to something that's an experience, that's a potential experience in the military. And I found that to be very helpful because whether it's, Maslow's hierarchy of need, food, water, shelter, clothing, that type of stuff. After that, then those other things kind of can bounce around, and depending on where they are in their lives, they're all going to have something different. And so you have to listen to them. You have to get to know them and understand what motivates them, and then attach something that the Navy can provide to that so that they can then, once they can see themselves in it, it becomes easier. It's when you're trying to just tell them, oh, you'll get paid this much annually. Okay, yeah. And, Amazon will give me this annually. Okay, Amazon doesn't make me deploy, but you're going to make me deploy. I'm going to miss my family. And I'm married with, a 2-year-old, and I don't want to leave them. So you got to find something different to speak to that person. And I've just continued to refine that approach over the years. Because again, it goes back to my passion, which is helping people. So I leverage my experience, I leverage my network of experience, and I just tap into that on a consistent basis.
All the things that you told us, the opportunity to lead, to manage others, getting to see the world in a safe environment, the financial stability that a regular paycheck provides, that investment in yourself and attaching something the Navy provides to their life or their life stage. All of those things you are reflected very well in you and again in those people in your background. So why is it important for you to give back? I know you've touched on this. Why is it important for you to give back to your community, be a role model for young people with similar backgrounds as you?
So I would say for me, I guess I'll start with the Navy first. It's no secret that the Navy over the last several years has had a significant decrease in representation at the 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star level. And it's easy to say that, well, the Navy just doesn't select officers, doesn't select minority officers. Okay, that's partially true. But if we're not in the inventory, if we're not playing in that game, then you can't select 0 you can't select 2 from 0. And so I have found, just from my personal experience and the people I've talked to over the years with shared experiences, their individual experiences have been representative of what they consider to be the Navy experience, and then they self-select out and they say, I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm going to go home and take my talents to South Beach, as LeBron James said. And and when you do that as a lieutenant commander, as an 04, you can't make 05 if you're not in as an 04. You can't make 06 if you're not in as an 05. And so when I was a lieutenant in 03, based on some experiences I had as a recruiter that were not positive, I said to myself, okay, maybe Lieutenant Walker can't change anything, but maybe Commander or Captain Walker could. And so that's been associated with my passion, is helping others that look like me and that don't look like me, try to be better versions of themselves through education, through shared experience, through mentorship, through connecting, through networking early and often. Because it goes back to what I said about meeting people's needs. You know, some people join the Navy, they will love the deployment, but they will hate the shipyard period where you have to do all this maintenance and you're not feel like you're not doing anything. And so leaders have the added responsibility of adapting their culture and their climate within the command to facilitate that lull in what probably drives them. And when you harness that then turns into a more positive experience, which I then believe inclines the member to consider continued naval service. I say all the time that people join the Navy for one reason, but they stay for a different one. And what happens between that joining and staying is probably 1 or 2, maybe 3 commands. And if that member feels that command, which is usually connected to the people that they're serving with, if they've had more bad experiences than positive ones, they reflect that and say, this was my Navy experience, not this command experience. And so that, I guess the bumper sticker on that is people, how do I say it? People don't leave organizations, people leave people. And I believe that from a retention perspective, if sailors and naval officers have had a bad personal experience, interpersonal relationship perspective, they decide that the Navy is not the career for them because of that personal experience.
You regarded one of the reasons that you got your award is the impact that you are having on people in the ROTC and at HBCUs, I think one of them in particular. So what do you talk to people in the ROTC about? And how does the ROTC change lives?
Yes. So when I finally got a free moment, this was back in 2017, myself and 2 other alumni from Norfolk State University, we decided that we were going to try to be more intrusive in supporting our local ROTC unit. And so we met with the lieutenants and the captain and got an assessment of what the ROTC students needed, and they started providing that need. Then again, the same concept from earlier, providing the need. And what they needed was additional exposure outside of their ROTC unit. So that meant talking to a supply officer, talking to a nurse, talking to a pilot, talking to a medical expert, talking to a dentist, talking to an information warfare specialist, talking to a cryptologic warfare specialist, getting them visits to the Pentagon, getting them visits to Congress, having flag officers come and talk to them about life in the military, having lieutenants who had just graduated maybe 6-7 years ago come back and share their lived experience with them. Give them, here's what, when you're sitting in class talking about ethics, here's some ethical dilemmas I actually had to supplement what they're learning from a theoretical perspective in the classroom. And so, and it was beautiful because we were able to start doing that on a monthly basis, where we created opportunities for them to get additional exposure beyond their requirements just to graduate.
That's wonderful. I think you're going to have to come back and talk about all the STEM jobs in the military, because I think there are about 150 of them. You mentioned a couple of them, supply officer, nurse, and lots more. So it'd be nice for you to.
I would love to.
Absolutely. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, Commander Walker. At this point, I'm going to throw it back to Ray. Thank you again.
Commander Walker, this has been great. I've learned a lot. And as we bring this to a close, I do have a couple more questions before I give you the final word to kind of leave the audience with. But as we sit here and we've had this discussion, the path of a Black naval officer, I want to ask you, what in your military career has been your favorite memory?
Yeah, this is tough. I have two short ones. My first one is when I was the operations officer on USS Carney. The way that we were able to build a team for our deployment that I did was truly inspirational. So much so that my wife, who is a Navy veteran herself, calls that her favorite tour. It was just the way that we came together as a team to meet all of our missions and be successful. It was just great. And this was even in the midst of my medical evacuation off the ship for a neck issue. My assistant operations officer, Joshua Spencer, he was able to keep the machine running while I was gone in the middle of deployment, that's exactly how you would want it. If you go down as the top person for your department, then your team can keep operating without you. And to me, that was just a wonderful experience. My second one is when I was on the USS CARL VINSON. This tour was a very arduous tour for me. I actually consider retirement from this tour, from some of the experiences I had mentally and emotionally. But I had an awesome Chief Petty Officer, William Rivera. He and I were aligned from the first day I checked on board, and we had a plan to turn things around for our division. And when I reached my lowest moment, my junior sailors, which are E6 and below, bought into what we were trying to do, and they changed the culture because they bought into what we were trying to do. And so again, it was another variation of the team buying in a way that if you take me out of the equation, they had the team confidence, the team boldness to continue doing mission, no matter what. So
that's amazing. And my background is I played football in college, and I had a coach who would always say that expectation is for the position. And, he was actually Tom Brady's coach when he was at Michigan. But what he meant by that, and in reference to both the examples you gave, if Tom Brady go down, whoever steps in, the expectation is the same. The expectation is not for Tom Brady. The expectation is for whoever's running that position. And so if you're expecting excellence, then excellence is needed no matter who's running that. And so I did want to throw that out there because it tied in to what you were saying. The expectation is for the position. So whoever's next man up, you got to hold the line.
Exactly.
And so before I give you last word, how can our listeners reach out to you or contact you if they have any questions or want to follow up? Do you have any social media, LinkedIn, or anything that you could share?
Absolutely. I am on Facebook under Desmond Walker. I got a picture of myself in uniform on it. Because I don't do I don't get into the comments too much. I just share positive energy on my social media. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, again, Desmond Walker. I am on Instagram at Forged by Fission, which is a play on the Navy's current slogan, which is Forged by the Sea. Because I'm a nuke, so forged by fission, nuclear fission. Corny, I know.
As we've learned today.
Right? And then I'm also on Twitter at DW78, DEEDUBYA 78.
Awesome. And so as we get ready to close this out, Commander Walker, what words of inspiration or encouragement do you want to leave our listeners with?
Yes, I will leave you with this. I had a phrase I came up with when I was doing some self-reflection about leadership after, as I was preparing to become an executive officer. And the phrase I use is qualified for the blessing. And what I mean by that is setting a goal is easy. Setting an end goal is easy. I want to do this. That's easy. The hard part is figuring out what it takes to get there. And even if that opportunity has presented itself yet, you can do things to get yourself ready for when that moment presents itself. Because when the moment presents itself, it can be unannounced. And if you haven't done the work, then you're not qualified for it when it presents itself. And I say that because from an ownership perspective, sometimes opportunities present themselves, and because we miss it, we blame the system for not giving us the blessing that we think we deserve. But we're not really qualified for it yet because we didn't do the work. So I'm a big personal accountability guy, and I'm just about, okay, what else can I do self-improvement to be where I want to be? And that's how I mentor the folks that I support. It's okay, yep, got it. They screwed you over the last time. Okay, so what's next? Turn the page, move to the next problem, move to the next thing, wherever it is. You don't waste time dwelling on what happened before. You can't do anything about that. That's happened. So qualify for the blessing.
That's powerful. Commander Walker, I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of High Tech Sunday. And I want to thank all the listeners for joining us for this great conversation. Please be sure to join us next time on High Tech Sunday. Brandon, back to you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of High Tech Sunday. Career Communication Group's High Tech Sunday looks at professional development and technology through the lens of spiritual philosophies. In a time when digital information is more critical than ever, this weekly program is produced by and for CCG's community of alumni and professionals in science, technology, engineering, and math fields. The community runs from national thought leaders to aspiring students, and this weekly series aims to bring a concentrated discussion around technological advancements and achievements based on universal moral principles. The 1-hour podcast will be streamed every Sunday. The podcast can be accessed through the BEYA Facebook page, Women of Color Facebook page, and CCG YouTube page, in addition to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and Spotify. Please join us next time.